BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Today, Pretty Mike forgot to introduce himself again, so I'm here to let you know he's on the horn today with Tom Loomis from Unique Metal Holders, where they have a great discussion about his products and about adventure racing in general. Sit back, relax, and take a listen to this episode. It was a lot of fun to edit, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun listening to it.
Well, I tell you, I mean, I think your show was the first one I really, maybe that was more of a national show, not like a local program that I'd been on. And I was surprised that how far reaching after coming on your show, we sold all over. I mean, we sell all over. We sell multiple countries, but actually, until this weekend, that airing was the biggest weekend we had with our metal holders. And then this weekend, we had given some product out to Tom Manning.
I love Tom.
Yeah, great guy.
Tom.
I've done a lot of hurricane heats with him. That's where I first met him. And in hurricanes, you really get to know somebody.
Yes.
So we became fast friends. I had already done quite a few by the time I met him. And so he leaned on me pretty heavily. And we, I think when we did H3X, everybody called us Tom Tom. So that was giving out the product to him. And then he put the information out with the new tiki that we've released. And we this weekend blew up. Huge weekend.
I've seen the tiki, and I keep telling my wife I want it because I'm going to Hawaii in like a couple weeks and doing the trifecta weekend again. So
that is my plan.
Yeah, I did. I'm doing Seattle, and then that's what's just dumb. I'm doing the trifecta weekend in Seattle, and then Wednesday flying to Hawaii, and then doing Hawaii the next weekend. So I'm doing two trifecta weekends back to back. Everyone's like, "You're like whatever." I mean, it's probably my only real. I'm not doing many races this year and Spartan wise because I've been focusing. I mean, I don't know if you follow me on everything, but I've been doing a lot of triathlons.
Right.
So
yeah, I did see that.
So I've been training hard for those. So I mean, Spartan is still my my first love, but at the same time, it's like when you're training for triathlons, it's a whole different animal. So
yeah. Well, what's interesting I see is to me, it was Spartan and hurricane heat stuff heavy. I mean, and it is still my love, but I call it my gateway drug because it's what took me to adventure racing. Had I not done that, I never would have done, my first adventure race, or technically an expedition race, 72 hours across the state of Florida using a map and a compass.
I so want to do one of those.
I would have never done that had I not, what I was doing was I would do a 4-hour hurricane, or the way it would start would be a 12-hour hurricane and then a super. And usually the hurricane would end about 6 o'clock in the morning. And then my elite heat would go off for the super an hour or two later. So I'd go run that, go back to the hotel or whatever for a couple hours after running that super, go to bed for a few hours, wake back up for the 4-hour hurricane at night, and then in the morning do the sprint. And I'm like, okay, if I can do that, I can do a hurricane, or I can do an adventure race.
Yeah.
And that's what started it.
And then that's one of the things that me and Megan Beck, the OCR trainer, we were talking the other day about it. It's like, it's kind of gotten to a point for a lot of us. We started with OCR, but she's like, I just call myself an adventure racer now because I haven't done one yet where I actually bust out the, compass and go that way, but it's not just OCR for me anymore. It's
Yeah.
OCR. I did Ragnar not too long ago. I did the Sisu race, which is a 24-hour, like
Yep.
choose your own adventure, here in the Pacific Northwest. I did that. I'm doing triathlons. I'm looking at Ironmans. I'm doing all these other things, but I'm still an OCR racer, but it's more, she's like, no, I just call myself an adventure racer. That's what we do. She's like, now we just have to do an actual adventure race to like really call ourselves an adventure racer. So she sent me one, I guess there's one in Boston
Okay.
that she sent me a thing for, and she's like, she wants to do it next year. And I might end up joining her. So, but
So some of the fun ones are where you carry your own pack raft, and you have to you go out, you'll carry it with you, and then you enter in a river and you'll go down a couple miles. The newer ones can be quite expensive, and I found that like gear setup was between the bike and everything was quite a bit of money. But the thing is it packs up super tiny. So you find yourself in the middle of that and you need to find a pack raft, hit me up. I'll fly it out there for you and you can send it back when you're done.
all right. I'm gonna have to figure that, because that's the one thing that I've tried, and that's the thing that my wife will kill me right now, because I've already, with how much I spent on OCRs, and now all of a sudden, like the doing triathlons, like the bike that I have, I got so lucky. My father-in-law found it at a garage sale for $10, and it's a Specialized delay.
Oh,
It's like a $3,000 bike
it's a dollar bike.
it's a very
Yeah,
expensive, but he paid like $10 and I spent 300 having it tuned up at REI. So
right.
I made out on that. If I had to go out and buy a real bike, actually, it is a real bike. If I had to go pay for the actual price of a bike, my
Right.
wife would be like, no.
Right. Yep. No, I remember getting into it and doing the first C2C, and my first bike was, I think it was $1,800, and it was used, and it was from a buddy that was like, hey, I'm going to hook you up. And I remember thinking, oh my Lord, I can't believe I just spent this much money, carbon fiber bike, really super light. But I was glad I did. And then the next year for C2C, I got a hold of a brand new bike that was from a racer, and it was given to him to sell, so that the company wasn't giving him cash and getting taxed on it. They gave him a product, and then he resold it, and it was a retail 7,500, and I got it for $3,000, and I was like, I can't believe I'm still spending this much money, but
Oh
you
yeah.
need it. You need
I've
it.
looked at a few of them that I'm like, I really, wouldn't it be bad having a nice one, a real one. Like I keep saying, real one. Mine is, it's a special, but it's probably a 15-year-old bike. But even 15 years old, it's still a really good bike. But it's
Right.
like, I'm looking at them, and I was at like the bike shop the other day, and it's like $7,000-8,000. I'm like, that's more than my first 4 or 5 cars combined.
Yeah, yeah. Well, nowadays you get a really nice car that'll take you 100,000 miles.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
but in the races, like I said, I attempted the Ironman last year, and a lot of people know I DNF'd
Yeah.
because I couldn't move. I killed myself in the swim, and then I just couldn't move fast enough on the bike. And the big problem was the bike that I had. It wasn't a great bike. I hadn't had a whole lot of time on it. And it's like, now that I have this one, averaging 14 to 15 miles, per hour, it's about normal. With the other bike that I had, 13, I was pushing. And this one,
Right.
14, 15 miles an hour, that's about, that's an easy pace that I could hold for quite a while on this bike. And it's just so much difference. And it's like, okay, I get the cost, but I still
It,
can't bring myself to pay that much.
yeah. Well, it's amazing. I didn't think that there was a big difference, and I was surprised that, even going from the one that I had originally to the next one, I I test drove it. I went out there to the guy and said, he goes, just ride it around. And within like 4 pedal strokes, I was like, oh my Lord, I can't believe the difference and how much easier it is. And when you are up for 72 hours and in some stretches doing 100 miles, you're like, thank you for
Yeah.
spending the money.
Well, and that's the
But
thing in triathlons too, is if you don't have the right bike, when you go to hop off and go run, your legs are smoked because you're using the wrong muscles, and that's kind
right.
of it. And it's one of those weird things that you don't think about. Like I did an Olympic not too long ago and finally actually finished the Olympic distance on a triathlon. and you get out of the water, you're already a little beat because that takes a lot out of you with the swimming. Go ride the bike for 24 miles. If you don't have a good bike, when you get off to go run that 10K, it's like, nope, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. The I was actually one of my daughter's best friends, her dad does Ironman and heavy, and then he's a trainer now. But you know, and he goes, you do what? Like, he sees what I do with the Spartan stuff and the Hurricanes, and he's like, no way, there's no way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're pretty fit and you do that stuff. And he I've always been interested in doing it. My biggest thing is I can't swim. I dislocated my left shoulder twice surfing, actually, and broke my collarbone. And this arm, when even in hurricane heats and you have to do the bag thing over your head, they look at me funny because I'm like trying to hold my arm up in a weird way because I can't get the motion.
Yeah.
So as much
That would
as I
make it
love
interesting.
water, I can't swim.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do the backstroke. I can do the backstroke and I love it, but I don't think that you're going to get too far.
Takes a little while, but I mean, I'll be honest, I flipped over to the backstroke just to get a breather, you know, occasionally.
Right.
But, I mean, it gets interesting. The swim was the hard part for me because I'm not, it's like one of those things, you know, and people who listen have heard this. When I grew up swimming in rivers. So I only had to swim good for like 30 feet.
Right.
And my wife's even commented, we go out swimming and she's like, you're a really strong, actually good form, everything swimmer for about 30 feet. And then everything goes to hell. And that was my biggest problem. It's like, you know, I tell everyone all the time, I didn't realize till I actually got a coach that I was really good at not drowning, but I was not good at all at swimming.
Right. Right.
No.
Right.
And everyone's like,
Actual swimming.
aren't they the same thing? No, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
And that's the
Right.
one thing, like you said, I mean, you get Spartan is like the gateway drug. It gets you start doing it. Then we meet people like you and me and everyone else. And they're like, oh, hey, you're doing Spartans. Want to go do this too? And you're like, well, what's that?
Right. Yeah. Well, so I was in Disneyland this weekend, and I sent you a couple of pictures. We took the tiki with us, and
Yep.
we took it on rides, and we photoed at the tiki room at Disneyland, and I had my pack with all my patches and stuff on it, and I remember the last guy we met. The guy was like, "Hey, you do Spartans?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do Spartans. But I'm really into the hurricane stuff." And he's like, "What's that?" Like, I never heard of that. And it's amazing how that isn't heavily publicized, but to me, that's where okay, you do the Spartan and you get used to obstacles and you can master the obstacles. And I think it took me 6 months to not, to pretty much clean the course and not have to do burpees and week in and week out, it's fun, but at some point, I'm not going to say it's not challenging, but the hurricane is different. It's always different. It's a different cryptea. It's a different venue. The temperature's different. When you're out there at night, it's totally different. And I was explaining it to him, and he was like, "Oh, what is this?" And so I sent him some information later on the drive home, and he was texting me back just amazed, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've never heard of this." And I like what you're doing, and I like what I'm doing, where I wore that pack not to show off. I wore it to engage in the conversation, and almost spread the word. Hey, that is a life-changing event. Maybe not the 4-hour, 12-hour for some. The 24-hour is huge, and then you get the Agogi. I think a lot of people think it's unattainable. I certainly thought a 12-hour was probably unattainable until you do the super, the sprint, the beast. You do the 4-hour. They get a good way to rope you in, it's great. I love it. So and then I like doing the holders because people then are like, I like getting the response from everybody. I thought I'm creative and I like to make things and do things. So just making it was fun for me, and then selling it cool, and making a business out of it. but more getting the response from people that I had a couple of people say they got into Spartan just because they saw us, the medal holder, and they thought it was cool and they wanted to like fill it up and didn't realize what they were getting into, but in essence inspiring people. And then during hurricane heats, like I said, you get to really know people, and then you talk to them and hey, I'm going to do an adventure race. And I did one in Maine. I think it was Maine. And 4 hurricane heat people showed up because I inspired them to do it. And they're like, man, I'm 51 and they're like 35, and they're like, I'm not trying to say you're old, but if you're 51 and doing this, I certainly can do it. And
Yeah.
I know 2 of them are addicted now and doing it. So I like just inspiring people and doing it.
And that is sometimes the best part. It's like, I've had a couple people, because just people that follow me on Facebook because we've met through this or doing races together or whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I've been watching you and I've been seeing you suddenly doing these triathlons. And I'm like, oh, it's always been on my bucket list. Maybe I should do it. And because it was always on mine, that's why I did it. It was a bucket list item. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go do one just for fun. Now I've done 4, but
right.
Still have an Ironman or 2 more that I'm scheduled for in the next 2 months. And it's kind of one of those things that people are like, I never thought about it. And then I saw you do it and I'm like, oh, maybe I should go do this too. And, and it's cool to hear that, like, oh, hey, I decided to go do this because I saw you do it.
Yeah.
Or because you were talking about it.
Definitely. Definitely rewarding. Like, especially if people find you on, I'm not a fan of the social media stuff, but it is a necessary evil. I don't want to pay for advertisement. I'd rather come on and give you product, or rather give some to Tom and Pikachu. I gave some out to the Alex, the Pikachu guy.
Alex.
Yeah. And so I rather support people like that motivate people and drive people. Brett Milks, who's the T-Rex, I'd rather give stuff out to people like that and spread the word than pay, Facebook advertising or Google ads, thousands of dollars to advertise the business. So that's, I learned with you, it was a great avenue, great venue. And ultimately that's where we got started with our I've been, like you said, you've been out of doing some Spartans. I've been out because I think Thanksgiving last year, I had getting my house ready for sale, and I was moving some stones, and I heard a big pop in my arm, and come to find out, the COVID thing and getting in to see get an MRI. It was actually, I think I did it around Thanksgiving. I didn't get in until New Year's Eve to get it x-rayed or MRI'd, and I 80% tore my bicep tendon off. And the funny thing is until you hear those words, I think I let it rest for about a week, and I continued my workout routine. I was training for C2C. C2C was in February. I saw my doctor at the beginning of the year this year, and he said, okay, we can get you in like 10 days for your surgery. I'm like, can I postpone that until after C2C? I've been training all year. He said, it's not a smart idea, but if it's a must. And I'm like, well, it kind of is if you're saying it's still attached and I can do it. So I went out and did it, and in February, and second C2C, 10 hours shy, or 10 minutes shy of 75 hours. And unfortunately, the year before the C2C event, Troy Mans was killed. Another team, he was killed by a driver that swerved into his team and killed him and sent his other 2 teammates to the hospital. So this year's C2C, they decided to move a lot of it into the rowing. So I had 18 hours of rowing. And I'm like, I could have taken the bike more,
Yeah.
more than that. So
That
needless
bicep.
to say, when I got back and had my surgery on April 4th, it was, the doctor pretty much just said it, yeah, it was detached now. It had gone torn off the rest of the way. But so we did that, and that day my house closed. We sold my house that I'd been in for 20 years that I built, and so I quit my job, which is a mechanic for 30 years, and now we're starting Loomis Family Adventures, and we're gonna go buy a catamaran and sail the world.
That's
So
amazing.
and I don't know how to sail. I've
Figured out.
I've been on a
Gonna have
sailboat, but
to.
I don't know how to sail. In fact, actually, we just got back from a trip to Croatia for a week. Got everybody on the boat or on a boat just to make sure that we liked it. Even after we sold the house, everybody said, "Okay, I dig it." And so we started a YouTube channel trying to inspire people to step way outside of your comfort zone. And what I'd like to do is do Spartan racing and adventure racing all around the world as we're sailing, and inspire people to do it. And my main bread and butter is being a mechanic, which I'm not going to do anymore. And so I'm really trying to drive the metal holding business. And so we're hitting it, and I've got a bunch of ideas, but we so busy working, it's hard to bust out with them. I had the trifecta idea a long time ago, just never got time to do it. And so
I love the tiki. By the way, like I said, I have
yeah,
the normal helmet that's downstairs, with all mine. So, but I love the tiki.
yeah. So we put two strong magnets in his pecs, and there's a little shelf down here, and his hand holds it, and it fits in there like he's wearing a necklace. The girls are on Etsy, you can get them for $88 in this form, in just the black.
Mhm.
And then my kids are being contracted for $10 more. They'll paint the lettering in. So my kids are painting the lettering in. You can
Which we'll
order it
have
however
links
you
to
want.
all of this on the
Yeah.
when this is put out. So
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I
So
hope if you're going to Hawaii, you're bringing one of those with you, because you need to get a picture with the Hawaii
yeah.
stuff
Oh
in
yeah.
there on the beach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if
Yeah.
not, I'll be in Hawaii.
That's the plan. I'm trying to go this weekend. I'm going to help at the Austin 24-hour
Mhm.
hurricane heat. Andy and Milo will be out there. Some might know Andy ended up being my teammate. I've done so many hurricane heats. Andy Hardy became my adventure racing teammate, because she thinks I'm wild and crazy and nutty, and
And Andy's wild and crazy and nutty, so it works.
yeah. And even when things are down, I'm usually laughing and giggling, even though I'm miserable. And so I like to think I'm decent company.
Yeah,
When
that's
that's
awesome.
going on. But yeah, so I mean, I did want to come in and shamelessly promote our stuff, but
Of course.
more, we're getting started. I don't know how to edit very well. I've taken 80 hours worth of editing, and the first couple videos are pretty raw, but I'm sure, like,
We all
you
start.
got started.
Yep.
Yeah, you look back and you're like, wow, that was pretty rough, but you got to start somewhere.
And see, where I found a way to make it easier is I make Dawn do it all.
Well, you know what's weird though for me is, okay, I can talk to you. I don't have a problem talking to you. I can interact with you. I hate talking. I even hate talking on the phone because you can't see somebody. You can't engage. And trying to make a video where you're just talking to the camera, a lot of people make it look easy, but My wife makes it look easy. My wife is really good at it. No, I'm not good at talking to an inanimate object.
It's tough, and that's been the hardest thing for me sometimes. What I've tried doing, there's a couple episodes, if you go way back, I haven't done it in a long time, where I just did me talking about an experience like to the audience. And it's really tough because there's no interaction. There's nothing coming back. You have to
Yeah.
fill all the voids. And it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
this is tough. And on one of my other shows that I do, we do a midweek, we do an episode every Sunday and then a midweek episode on the Rabbit Hole show. And the midweek is just me talking. And it's really tough sometimes because I start getting on things and then I'll go back and listen to it. And you can tell where you kind of backtracked a little bit on what you already said because there's nobody to talk to. And it gets really weird. So it's like always like, oh, I prefer this, having a conversation with someone, because then there's feedback.
Yeah, right. Well, and there's a direction. Like you said, I remember shooting my first one, which I ended up completely deleting. But I had gotten to the point where I'd gone down so many rabbit holes. I was chopping this out, chopping that out, chopping this out. And something that was 45 minutes of recording, I think I had 5 minutes and it was a mashed up bag of crap. So
that's why I like that. Dawn is really good at it. I used to, I mean, if you listen to some of the old episodes, I was one that did it. And you could hear like in the very beginning where I was editing it, trying to make it good. And after a couple months, it was just like, whatever, they get to what they get.
Right.
Now, Don does it, and Don does a great job editing out. He'll listen to it all, write down wherever we do something that, needs to be cut or whatever, and he cleans it up really nicely. So that's how I cheat at it. I just found somebody else to do it for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is cool because you don't necessarily throw in graphics in and stuff like that. But when you're trying to, you got to edit and then throw graphics in because you're not going to capture anybody that's under 25 nowadays unless something's zooming across the screen or something here and there. But ultimately, I really just I found that the metals, the feedback of the joy people were getting from it. I was, I knew people liked it, but you had people saying, messaging, are you guys doing well? Because I want to know if you're going to be around next year. Should I order now? Because
Yes.
I want, that type of thing. And that response is like, man, most people don't respond to anything unless they're mad or angry about something. So for people to write in and say, thank you. I mean, we have over 100 5-star reviews from people all over the place. And it's not like I love the product. They were easy to deal with. And a lot of times a paragraph of people saying, what they say, and my kids read it and are like, wow, that's really cool. And so they see it.
Yeah. I say what's cool about it is like for me, when because you sent me the one and I have the helmet, which I love it. Like I said, I have it down there. Before I had the helmet, and I still have some of them, that I have a bunch of the wedges that I'd pulled off, like some of the older ones that are just stacked up.
Yeah.
I have a stack of them in the window next to the where I have all the, all the medals hanging. Cause I mean, I've done almost 60 Spartan races.
Right.
So it's like after a while, it's like, but you still want to kind of show like, hey, look at what I did. I did a trifecta weekend. And that just gives a whole different feeling to it. And that's why it's like, that's kind of cool to have, the holders like that, because it shows it a different way of, rather than just like right now, it sounds bad to say this, but pretty much every medal I've earned this year is in a pile underneath the wall, because I'm just like, there's so many,
yeah. Well, no. And I think any more like you or I, you do so many of them, it is, you're not necessarily doing it for it. You do get it and you keep it or whatnot. But that was one thing that what I had the idea for the Hawaii one. And I had people that did say, like, I've done so many, and, not that they don't mean anything, but you did it because you wanted to go be with your friends and have fun. But going to Hawaii and a lot of times you'll go do other things and it's an experience. I've had people that said, you know what, your stuff is really cool and I really like it, but I have so many I would never buy any of your stuff. And then I'm like, this is my new idea, and they're like, yeah, I probably would buy that.
Yeah. Take my money. Take my money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's one of those things that's really cool because, like you said, I mean, I have so many down there. It's gotten to a point that, I had a conversation with someone the other day. I'm like, to me, it isn't even really about the metals anymore. It's about the memories. But sometimes you want something like, like I keep looking at the tiki one. And I mean, some people know how important Hawaii is to me and some don't. It took me 3 tries to be able to do the entire trifecta weekend because every time something went wrong. Actually, it was 4 if you count the fact that one year the whole entire, it was the 4th year because the 3rd year was when a hurricane came through and wiped out and we didn't even have a race. So it took me 4 years to finally get to where I finished all 3 in a weekend. So that was a huge thing to me. And for me, I got lucky too. It was also the year they gave away for the first time that medal that said, here, you did this all in a weekend, the weekend trifecta medal. So having something like that would be like, this was a huge accomplishment. This is where I stepped up, so having something where I could put that together, like, hey, here, I did this all in a weekend, all in Hawaii, and that's one where it's like, where there's those special ones.
Yeah.
Having
So we're working on Big Bear. I think that's an epic one for a lot of people. And Tahoe. I've got a couple ideas. I don't know how well it'll pan out. I don't want to just put something out there just, for the hell of it.
I was thinking like Tahoe and Montana, both of those could be just like the mountain metal.
Yeah.
Like that they had a couple of years ago, that mountain.
Yeah.
Looking back down, I think that would look really cool on one of those.
The year that it rained and snowed and everything was frozen up top.
So, but they had that really cool mountain. I think that would be a really cool like backdrop. Something similar to
trying
that,
to figure out how to make that work. I don't know how to make that.
And that's kind
layout,
of it, and I'm sure that's one of those ones you're probably like me. You have ideas that run through your brain, but then you're like, how does that come together? And that's the hardest part, is trying to make it, depending on what it is. And a lot of people know this about me. I'm an idea guy. Dawn's the make it happen guy.
Right.
I come up with ideas. I tell Dawn, and then he comes back to me like a couple weeks later saying, look what I did. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, that's the idea you had like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Right. So when we do the hurricanes, we do the nomination stuff, and we haven't been able to do medallion nominations for military, first responders, active duty, veterans. So this will be one of the first ones. We did one 2 months ago. One of our past nominees gave one to a new nominee over on the East Coast. So that we've done it recently, but this will be the first one I've done since the whole COVID thing hitting. And I don't know how well it'll show up, and we're still working on it. I got to color it, but this is the medallion, and it's gonna be an Army guy. And if you can see it, it's got the Army pattern in it.
The Army pattern, which that looks so cool.
Yeah. So I know we've got actually 4. We don't normally do 4, but we haven't done it in a while, so we're gonna do 4. We did the Marine. We actually have a Marine, an Army, a Navy, and a paramedic who is also a Border Patrol agent as nominees this weekend at the 4-hour.
Nice.
So, or the 24-hour. So that'll be fun. I get a kick in the pants on that. That's like my, no one is expecting it. It's all usually a surprise. So hopefully nobody sees this.
Well, if it's this weekend, it'll probably go out after this weekend. So they'll miss it. So they won't.
Perfect.
So
perfect. So yeah, so that's the other one, I like to do. And my kids, we're going to do, if you haven't seen the endurance trifecta, it has those colors in it, not your normal colors. So we were thinking we'll color it in the trifecta endurance colors to go with the Army. So I think that'll give it like a cool kick out, and we'll send you some pictures.
Definitely send some pictures. Like, so that's one thing that I want to, emphasize too is it's not just one of those things like you're not just selling these. I mean, you also give them to, you know, first responders, you give them to current active, and retired military. I mean,
Yeah.
which is so amazing.
Yeah, we don't, the
To do
thing
all
is
that.
there is I don't publicize it. I don't, people are like, wow, that's cool. And I love that, where can I buy one? And, I try to separate my business, even though we're talking about it here together.
Mhm.
It's not, you go to our website or you go to the Etsy website, you won't see the medallions there because it's a Spartan thing. It's their trademark, but I can hand it out. I can't sell it, but I can hand it out. And we absorb the cost as a company. And some people will donate, and when we use that money, we set it aside. We sent somebody to H3X, a Marine that couldn't go, that wanted to go. So we used the money that we kind of got from people donating because of the medallion program. But I think we're at about 50 right now, and all of them strictly from us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like that.
No, we want to. And
So
like I said, it's amazing that you do that. I mean, it's one of those things that I think, and honestly, what makes it even more amazing is I know about it because I've talked to you and I know some of the people who've gotten them. But like you said, it's not a huge advertising thing you do. It's not something you're like, oh, hey, look at what we're doing, because you're
yeah.
not doing that for the publicity of it. You're doing it because these people deserve it.
Yeah,
And that's what
exactly. I don't
that's what's
want
awesome.
people to, it's not a publicity thing for me. And if anything, it's more, if it is a publicity thing, it's just to get the word out
Mhm.
to people
To nominate others.
that we do this and nominate somebody. Go to our website and nominate somebody. Because it's gotten to the point now where if we do go sailing, I still want to continue to do it. But we have 50 guys that have received it that are like, send it to me, I'll do it.
No.
And
send it to me,
so
I'll do it too.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I like to get that out there just so people know about it.
Yeah.
It's not usually hard to fill up the slot. Somehow somebody tells somebody when we do put the word out there. It's just that the program's been kind of like paused for 2 years. So
Yeah, COVID kind of paused a lot of things. So
yeah. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and that's one of the things that I love about, like, when I talked to you the first time, because the first time I talked to you, I didn't know a whole lot. I knew a little bit. I knew of the holder because you'd sent us one, and I'm like, well, this is cool. And then I talked to you, and there's so much more than just the holders. And I don't know if people realize that. I mean, and that's one thing. I mean, to the Loomis family and the company, there's so much more. Like you said, you do so many hurricane heats. You're getting ready to go on a cruise. I mean, the catamaran around the world sounds amazing. Me and a buddy have talked about like buying a catamaran and going to Hawaii and just like living on it and like renting it out to people and like taking them for rides just so we could
right.
be on it, not like actually around the world, which sounds amazing too. I definitely need my ties for that, but I'm in. So
Yeah. I had the idea about 20 years ago, and the wife finally, the market here in Phoenix was just insane for houses and stuff. And I mean, I built my house. It is a big, gigantic house. We're living in a 1,600 square foot apartment. It was a 6,000 square foot house with 3,000 square foot garage. Plenty of room to do anything and everything I wanted to do. But both the wife and I said, hey, that idea you had 20 years ago, I'm tired of the rat race. I'm tired of living in essence for the money, and let's go take our kids on an adventure.
yeah.
We sold well. You still have a mortgage you got to pay off, and and whatnot. And I insisted on being that person that didn't people weren't in 10 years weren't like, why is that guy broke? He made a lot of money. So we socked a big chunk of it away into a retirement plan, and made it so I'm still hungry. I still gotta, I gotta hit the pavement. I can't relax. I love doing this business. Even if we decided to not put that money in retirement, I'd still be pounding. I'm not that person to sit back. So, I'd still be pounding it and doing it. And so I just got to make this work. I got to make the YouTube thing work. I don't need a ton of money, but I got to make it work for the money. But I also have to. I love the motivation. I love even the small amount of videos we have out. I've got 1,500 views, and the comments from people. Again, like the Spartan stuff, the helmets and whatnot. The response from it is, I've always wanted to do that, but I'm a little too old. I'm gonna live through you, and I love it. And I think, what? Maybe I'll get on the water, and I'll reach out to that guy that says he's too old and he can't do it, and say, get a plane ticket to wherever, and we'll throw you on the boat for a week, and you can live a little bit of your dream.
Which would be amazing. And it's like one of those things, like when and it always kills me with the people saying they're too old to do like Spartan races. I'm like, let me introduce you to this man named Paul LaChance.
Oh.
And then tell me you're too old to do this. So
yeah. Paul was Paul was at I small circle of friends. Paul was at our house before we sold it. Paul professionally does appraising out of Colorado, home appraising. And so my 15-year-old daughter took him around and showed him everything, as we had a bunch of Spartan people over and friends, and I wanted to tell everybody what we were doing on like a down low type thing. The cool thing though was Paul later on actually called me and said, hey, your daughter actually talked to me. She had a conversation with me that was intelligent and was articulate and looked me in the eye and spoke to me, unlike a lot of the kids that are stuck to their screens and don't know how to engage. To me, that's why I'm doing the catamaran thing. I want to, my gift to the world is my kids when I'm gone. And I want to raise good human beings. And Paul saying that was like, he went out of his way to call me and tell me that. I was like, you think your kids are good when they're not around, but he was like, she was amazing. So awesome. I want her and her younger sister to experience it all. And I think it'll be a great experience for them.
It will be. And I think it's one of those things that, I mean, I'm in my 40s now, and it took me, until I was in my 40s to realize sometimes, because I was spending so much time chasing that dollar and doing whatever I had to do, because it was all about that money. I had to make sure I made money. I had to make money, that I put myself into a career that I was good at, but I hated it. I hated it. And I hated who I was, but I had to make that money. And it took like one day. And a lot of people know this, when I left, like, cause I ran a demolition company. I was an operations manager running a demolition company. And it was about 6 years ago or so. And I came home from work one day and I was pissed about something, and I don't even know what. And my son said something and I unleashed on him and got about 2 sentences in before I was like, oh. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. This had nothing to do with you. I apologize. And I went for a walk, and I went for like an hour-long walk, just walked outside and went for a walk. And during that walk, it dawned on me that, like, this is not who I am. This is not who I want to be, and that's when I realized it's not about the money. Money isn't, you hear the phrase all the time, money doesn't buy you happiness. It doesn't, if what you're doing to get that money destroys your soul.
Right.
and destroys who you are and takes you away from who you are. And that's one thing, I see with you. You're like, we're going to give our kids an adventure. And that's what life is about. It's about adventures, because it's like they always say, he who dies with the most toys still dies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not going to remember, all those medals hanging on my wall. But all the people that I interacted with, all the people I talked to, all the people that heard these episodes, that's what they're going to remember. What your
All the
legacy,
people you motivated.
yeah, the legacy
Yeah.
you leave behind is how other people saw you, not your stuff, and
Yeah.
that took me along. That was pretty much in that walk, in that moment, that I finally had that epiphany. And that's when I changed careers. I went into a career that I love. I love doing safety. I love being a safety person. I spent today teaching 19 and 20-year-olds who decided to go into the trades rather than go to college, teaching them OSHA 30,
Yeah.
and everything else. And I do something that's impactful, and I love it. And I love my job every day. And I'm so much happier. And honestly, I make more money than I did as a manager, but that was just happenstance. But I'm so much happier. I didn't choose this career because of the money. I chose this career because it made me happy, and it just happened to work out that I make more money. But and that's when I
Right.
love hearing your story, where you're just like, we're tired of the hustle and bustle. We had this 6,000 square foot house with this huge garage, huge everything, but it wasn't what made you happy. You're like, going on adventures is what make me happy. And I love
Yeah.
that. And I love hearing that.
I found the thing that was very interesting is that I love being a mechanic. I did like doing it. But it was definitely a job. You definitely hustled. And once we were done with everything, we moved into the apartment, and I would talk to people, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, I'm retired. And I said it probably 5 or 6 times. And the wife was like, "You're not retired. You're making metals. You got that business. That's a business." And I'm like, I don't think of it as a business. Like, I guess we're getting money from it, but it's fun. Like, I enjoy it. And my kids are there with me. And like you said, the OSHA thing, they're running equipment, and they know I've run equipment my whole life, and my kids have long hair, and they know I'm going to use a sander. I got to put my hair back. They know, like, I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen. So you got to be ready to unplug the thing. You got to be able to shut it off, because I'm not babysitting you. You got to know how to run this piece of equipment. If you don't know how to run it, then I shouldn't be standing. If I'm there, that doesn't mean anything. You should know how to run it without me there. And the other day, they hadn't run stuff for a while, and my wife was like, forgot that they know how to run stuff. And she was like, "Oh my God, I don't, don't let them do that." And I'm like, Emma's like, Mom, I know what I'm doing. She's got a long dress on. She goes and changes and puts on pants and a tight fitting shirt so it doesn't get caught. And it's, when you do it day in and day out, it's one thing, but when you've passed it for a while and you haven't been doing it, and then they come to it and they remember, you're like, oh, they're learning, they're actually processing this stuff. I'm like you, like hands-on. I want to be a hands-on dad. I want to be there. I'm not going to be there to coddle him, but I'm going to be there to teach him and move forward where I'm not around every minute.
And that's what you want to do. I mean, you want to make sure these kids are ready for life outside. It's like, I see all these people talking about, the kids today not being ready for the outside world. And I'm like, well, whose fault is that? That's ours as the adults that didn't teach them.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
I'm making sure it's like, today, like I said, it's a program that I do with one of the colleges around here in the company that I work for, where we teach the kids that have decided not to they want to go into the trades. We make sure they have that advantage of, OSHA 30. I mean, today we actually did an aerial lift class, and one of the girls in the class is afraid of heights. And I'm like, you want to go to the top? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, if you get scared, let me know. And we went all the way up. I took that aerial lift to the top, to the point where even I'm like, I don't want to be up here anymore. Let's go down.
Right.
But
yeah,
she
yeah.
went for it, and that was kind of, it was fun to see that. So, and that's one of the things I love, that hands-on. I love that. And that's why, it's do what you love, and then it doesn't feel like work. You're enjoying
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It makes you such a happier person,
Well, it's interesting like that. Like Spartan, that community, a lot of people do stuff that they don't want to do. Somebody conned them into going usually. And then they're like, I don't want to go up the A-frame. I can't get over a wall. I can't do this. And then they realize they can, and then they do. And I think a lot of people, young youth, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to be a this because I want to make good money. Well, you can make good money being hands-on. I think one of my kids will be a vet, maybe. The other one loves hands-on. I posted a video on Facebook. My oldest, Emma, said, Dad, I want to carve a spoon out of a block of wood.
I saw that.
I'm like, why? You go buy one that somewhere for $5. Well, because I want to. So I posted a video of her. She'd carved the whole thing out and she was just cutting the last little bit out. And I just thought it was like pretty amazing. She stayed up till 11 o'clock at night making a spoon.
But she did it. And I think, and that's one of the things I think, the Spartan race, the adventure race, all this stuff teaches us a lot of things of we don't have to have a reason. We just want to. It's like I get people all the time like, why do you do these races? Because I want to. They're like, what does it prove? Nothing. That I can do something that I want to do. That's what it proves. It's like I'm not out there to prove anything to anybody else. I'm out there to prove to myself that I can still do this. That, at 40, I'm 44. I won't be 45 for a bit, but almost 45. I mean, I'll be 45 this year. That I can still get out and do this after, 20 years ago, having doctors tell me both my knees needed to be replaced and I haven't done either one, and still being able to do this, still being able to run marathons, still be able to do triathlons. I can push my body to limits that I never thought I could.
Right.
And everyone's like, why? And I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
And my wife hates that. She'll ask me stuff all the time. Why do you want to do this? Why not?
Right. Ooh. Yeah. What are you going to respond to?
Yeah. It's like my why isn't any less important than your why not. So, I mean, because I want to, because I can,
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Andy and I were doing, Andy and Kirsten, actually you were talking about, was it Seesaw?
Yep.
Yeah. So we did Andy and Kirsten Constance did a, adventure race in New Mexico. And she just finished Sisu and then flew to New Mexico for the adventure race there. It was a 24-hour where we rafted down Rio Grande. None of us had done that kind of rafting. The pack raft, we had to bring a pack raft. And Andy needed both knees. And that race, she was miserable. The crazy thing is that we won that race because everybody else had dropped out. And I find that so I was in great health. I was doing just perfectly fine. Andy's like just muscling it out as best she can. And I think a month later, 2 weeks later, maybe even less than that, she had both knees done. But she was miserable. And now she's back running the hurricane heats. And I found that very inspiring. I was like, you of all people have proven yourself. You don't need to be out here doing this. And she's like, I signed up for it. I want to do it. And everybody had dropped out the day before. We didn't have to finish the last day. We were the last team standing, but we finished that day. We're the only team out there finishing that day. We're at the top of a mountain. It started snowing. We could have just ended at any time. And she kept pushing, and she got her knees done. And I remember hearing how difficult, and she was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back. And now she's back.
Yeah. Which is awesome. I mean, and that's one of those things that, I mean, we can push our bodies. After I broke my foot, I was told I would never run again. I would never get that push off on that left foot because of where I broke it. And I did a marathon last year in 4 hours and 39 minutes.
Right.
Is that a record time? For me, it is. But
yeah,
but that's with someone who they told would never run again because of the foot injury and my knee injuries. And it's like, nope, I'm going to do it anyway. Do I have issues with both of those? Yeah, I do. But, I found ways to push through them and, do stuff. And I know there's a fine line between that pain that's uncomfortable and that pain, like I need to stop.
Right.
And
Right.
luckily so far I haven't hit that I need to stop pain yet in my knee or my feet. So, I mean, I just keep going. It's like one of those things a lot of people know. For the first 7 months of the year, I did a 5K a day. And then at the end of July, I'm like, okay, my legs need to rest, and I'm like 7 months of a 5K a day, I think is a little much. I think I went a little too far on this. It was supposed to be a month and I went 7. So it's like, and so I took a break. I've been only doing a mile a day since then, just to kind of give my legs, because it was also, I did Sisu, Ragnar, 2 triathlons back to back in July. So, I mean, it was like my legs were angry. So,
Right.
so it was like,
It's funny how so many people just like, just kind of accidentally dive into it, any of this stuff, and so many become junkies.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's me. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's like, I literally, as soon as I finished the last triathlon, I was signing up for another one. And my wife's like, really? And I'm like, well, now that I've done an Olympic, I want to get another Olympic under my belt before I do the Ironman in September. And she's like, whatever. She's like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like now
Yeah.
between the Ironman and September, I think I have 2 weekends where there aren't races. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be pounding hard, but it's also, I need to keep training in the middle of that too, to make sure I'm ready for them, the swimming, getting ready for that and all that stuff. So it's a lot of training, but that's why we do this. So
It's people are like, wow, how do you do it? And I think like it's just fun. I mean, it really is. I mean, uh, it's just fun.
it is.
I don't know how to explain it to any other people. Some people are like, well, why? And like you said, that's a good one. I don't remember the why. Well, why? I get,
Why not?
yeah, yeah, right. Why do you have to justify it?
You don't.
Yara is a
Mhm.
really like her and I have done 5 or 6 hurricane heats together. She's stayed at my house multiple times. She knows my kids very well. She's like, I'm the first one that's going to be on your boat, regardless of where you're at. I'm going to be there. And we went to Disneyland this weekend. I was going to drop off something at her place, and I never made it. But she's amazing. And right now, I talked to her the other day and said, hey, where you at? I think she was in Canada. And she says, I've got something every weekend till the end of the year, because I think she's going for 31 or 33 trifectas for the year. And she's really close to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The people you meet, then the friends the friends you acquire along the way is just,
I want to eventually have a year where I can do that. So I don't know. I gotta get in a different position where I can do that.
I can't imagine 31 trifectas. And the funny thing is,
easier if I wasn't on the West Coast.
Yes, definitely. You need to be like centrally located to do it.
If my wife has her way, by this time next year, it'll be Texas. So
yeah. Oh, okay.
That's where actually in February this year, if everything goes as planned, in February of next year, I'll be moving to Texas.
Any specific place?
Conroe.
Okay. Where's that at?
It's about an hour or so north, I think northwest of Houston.
Okay.
So it kind of puts you centrally located between all the big, Dallas, Houston.
Right.
Well,
and it's big hub. That's a big airline hub for a lot of places.
It is.
The
the
majority of my hurricanes have been in Austin.
Nice.
So I've gotten to know Texas very well, and it actually is a lot nicer than I ever knew. Once again, a Spartan. I mean, I've been to states I've never been.
Yep.
Adventure races in states I've never been. I think up until I started, I might have been to 3 states. Now I've been to, I think, 28 states.
Yeah, my goal is to eventually do a race, not necessarily a Spartan, but some type of race in every state. So,
Right.
and I thought, I'd had better numbers till I actually started adding them, and I'm like, I'm at 7. So,
Right.
I
I
pretty
don't
much
think I'd
done.
ever gone to Montana unless there was that Montana race. And then I was like, odd. Montana's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. If it wasn't for the weather, that's where I would love to go. But my wife wants warm.
Yeah, it's a
She
little.
wants Texas.
Yeah. Right on.
Warmth. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to hear some of the stuff that you're getting into and all that kind of stuff. And I'm hoping that if you make it to Hawaii, we can get together one
Yeah.
in Hawaii. So that'd be awesome.
Well, my buddy Yara has a place. She said, I got a couch for you. So
Nice.
that's a tentative plan. I got to just my arm's not full. I'd be doing the 24-hour this weekend, but my arm's just not there yet. So I really think I probably still will end up going. I've been out of it for so long now that it's just, I gotta get back out there.
It's a gorgeous venue. Hawaii is amazing. So it's one of my favorite venues. So it's definitely one of those ones. But me and my wife have a deal. I'm sure you've heard it. If I travel for a race, it has to be like a vacation destination. So I get to travel for the race, but she gets to come with me and get a vacation because she doesn't do the races. So
Right.
So we always go. It's always usually like a Wednesday to Wednesday. So we get there, have a couple days of vacation. I do my races, and then have a couple more days of vacation, and then come back. So
all right. Well, we'll have to maybe we'll plan this out.
yeah, we'll have to hit me up at, maybe we'll have to hook up and come meet in person. So
yeah,
we've talked before, and I don't think we've actually met in person yet. So
nope, no, not at all.
Which would be awesome.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
I maybe I think I might have made my plans now.
Hawaii, and like I said, it's gorgeous there. I mean, it's where they filmed Jurassic Park. Is where the race is. So
right.
And I will tell you this: if you do the beast, it's a real beast.
Right.
Don't think that just because it's Hawaii that it's going to be easy. It's a brutal beast.
Right.
So
how does it compare to Big Bear? Have you done Big Bear?
I haven't done Big Bear, but I will say it's definitely comparable to Montana.
Okay.
With the hills, and actually, in some ways, the hills are probably worse in Hawaii.
Right.
Because it's not. There's trails, but and a lot of them, you're literally reaching up and grabbing branches and pulling yourself up to the next level.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're pulling yourself up with your arms. It gets.
Yeah, that's kind of how I rated. I think I rated Utah. Big Bear, Utah were the top tough ones. Tahoe wasn't.
I've heard that Hawaii is like just a little bit below those two, but it's up there.
Okay.
So, but then the super and the sprint, probably the easiest ones I've ever done.
Okay.
Because the hardest part of it, they take out of the super and sprint. It's only in the beast. And I mean, it's because you have to go up and over a single track in a couple of different places where you go literally up and over, and everyone's like, oh, it's an island flat. No.
I heard the single track was really rough.
You got to hit early. Because if you hit late and you get stuck on it, where we did a couple of years ago, by the time it took us almost 2 hours to go like 2 miles.
Right.
The single track, not because we were slow, but because we're stuck in line. Basically, it was just a line of people that couldn't go. And then by the time you got over it, because you're in that canopy with the humidity, it just sapped your energy.
Right. Okay.
Really interesting. So it's definitely a different style, a different race.
I heard it was pretty rough because of the elements.
Yeah. The elements will kill you.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, like Montana, where you all of a sudden you think I'm dying, this is horrible. You walk around a corner and you all of a sudden you see it, get the view, and you're like, I've died and I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. I will definitely be in touch on that one then.
Right on.
I'd already talked to Yara and said, hey, you got a room? Because the wife was like, we got to buy this boat. You got to keep the expenses down. So I was like, well, Yara says that she's got a place for me.
Well, there you go. You just buy the boat in Hawaii and start from there.
Yeah. There you go. Right on.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you. I know I think you said you had to go pick up, your family
First
here in
day
a
of
little
school.
bit. First day of school.
Yeah.
So thank you. Make sure and send me all those links, and I'll make sure that I get the links to your YouTube, the links to your, the shop, everything, so people can find you. Because anybody who isn't watching this on the YouTube channel and is listening, go to their channel, go to their, Etsy, go to it and look at these metal holders. They're amazing.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.